What if the greatest threat to the Church wasn't heresy, but philosophy itself? For centuries, the Vatican claimed to be the guardian of truth, the voice of God on earth, a divine institution guiding humanity toward salvation. But beneath the golden ceilings and incense-thick air, something darker was happening, something that history books often omit. Not just the burning of witches or the silencing of dissenters, but a slow, methodical erasure of minds, thinkers, philosophers, radical souls who dared to look beyond dogma, who asked questions that couldn't be answered with scripture. Not because they were wrong, but because they were dangerous. This isn't a story about atheism or rebellion. It's about ideas. Ideas too powerful to be controlled. Because when a person begins to think deeply, freely, beyond the sanctioned limits of belief, they become unpredictable. And unpredictability is fatal to institutions built on obedience. It disrupts the mechanisms of conformity and weakens the psychological grip of centralized power. The Church knew this, and so it did what every empire does when faced with intellectual wildfire. It tried to bury it, not all at once, not with open violence, but slowly, strategically, through excommunication, revision, erasure, and fear. It wasn't just about controlling what people believed, it was about controlling what they could imagine. Take Giordano Bruno, a Dominican friar turned cosmological revolutionary. He stood in the heart of Europe and declared that the universe was infinite, that stars were suns with their own planets, possibly even with life, that God could not be confined to one book, one world, one institution, and that the soul was eternal, part of a vast divine fire, a cosmos too immense to be ruled by a single theology. For this he wasn't debated, he was burned, alive, in public. The flames weren't just to punish a man, they were a warning to the future. Think this way, and you'll meet the same fate. But Bruno's fire wasn't extinguished with his body. His ideas lingered like smoke in locked archives, in forbidden books passed between hands in the dead of night, in whispers at the edge of safe conversation. His vision of a boundless cosmos lived on, not in lecture halls but in the margins of the mystical underground. He was not alone. There were others, hundreds, many whose names are lost. Others like Meister Eckhart, the German mystic who dared to say that the spark of God lived within every human being. That union with the divine was possible without a church. That true spirituality required silence, not sermons. He taught that when the soul strips itself of ego and image, it meets the divine not outside, but within. For this, he was tried for heresy. His teachings were investigated by the Inquisition. Some of his work was declared heretical. But the real punishment wasn't always fire. It was distortion. His words were edited, rewritten, spiritualized into safety. The same with Marguerite Porete, burned for writing a book about divine love so pure it made earthly authority obsolete. Burned for suggesting that once a soul reaches union with God, it no longer needs priests. This was the threat: direct access to divinity, a spiritual self-sufficiency that bypassed the pulpit. If God could be known in silence, then what was the church for? If the soul was already divine, what was the need for sacraments, confessions, mediators? The institution relied on being necessary. These thinkers showed it wasn't. The suppression wasn't limited to mystics. It extended to philosophers whose frameworks clashed with orthodoxy. Lucilio Vanini, who compared the church's control to the mind-forged manacles of a terrified empire. Baruch Spinoza, whose pantheism equated God with nature itself, leaving no room for intermediaries. He was excommunicated not just from his Jewish community, but unofficially from the intellectual canon for centuries. Even Descartes delayed publication of some of his ideas out of fear of church reprisal. Many of these thinkers weren't simply silenced, they were erased, their works banned, their names omitted, their influence minimized in the grand narratives of Western philosophy. Instead, safer figures were elevated. Thinkers who played the game, who debated within the boundaries, who posed questions but never touched the root. Philosophy was declawed, turned from a weapon into a mirror. The Vatican didn't just censor, it curated. It shaped the intellectual landscape the same way it shaped cathedrals, imposing, ornate, but ultimately designed to direct your gaze upward, not inward. A structure designed to awe, not awaken. And this curation continues. Even now, archives in the Vatican remain sealed, manuscripts classified, gospels labeled apocryphal, not because they are absurd, but because they threaten the coherence of control. The Gospel of Thomas, for example, speaks of a kingdom within. No need for rituals, no need for hierarchy, just the naked confrontation between self and source. That idea is radical. It bypasses centuries of tradition. It makes the soul sovereign. And sovereign souls do not kneel easily. It's easy to think of these stories as ancient, as relics of a darker past. But suppression is never just historical. It's structural. It's a blueprint of power. And power, once learned, is rarely abandoned. The patterns persist. New robes, new rituals, same mechanics. Even today, how many thinkers go unpublished? How many voices are discredited not on the basis of truth, but on the convenience of silence? How many questions are never asked, simply because the language for them has been erased? And how many accept the official version of reality, not because it is complete, but because it is repeated? The greatest heresies were not against God. They were against the monopoly on meaning. The idea that only one institution, one narrative, one book, one voice could define the sacred. Imagine a world where philosophical exploration was encouraged, not criminalized, where truth wasn't dictated but discovered, where belief was not a cage, but a ladder. The philosophers the church silenced were not destroyers of faith. They were builders of inner freedom. They did not reject the sacred. They rejected its containment. They saw God not as doctrine, but as mystery, alive in the stars, in thought, in silence, in love that transcended all forms. They were exiled for saying, "You already have access." That enlightenment is not earned through obedience, but through awakening. That salvation is not a reward, it's a recognition. Today their exile ends because you are listening, you are remembering, you are picking up the thread of a lineage that never died, only went underground. A lineage that invites you not to follow, but to remember. This video is not an attack on religion. It is a wake-up call to those who sense there is more, to those who feel the tension between inherited faith and personal knowing, to those who see that true philosophy isn't safe, it's sacred rebellion. You're not just a viewer, you're an inheritor, a philosopher in the shadow of cathedrals, a mystic with no need for a temple, a seeker no longer waiting for permission. Like, subscribe, hit the bell, share this with someone who's ready to look behind the curtain. Comment below, what's one belief you were taught that now feels like a cage? This isn't blasphemy, it's memory. Let's remember together.